Oh, shit. Let's see. Surprise. All right, let's see here. Invite. Invite. Come on. Let's see. Why aren't you working? You go live. Work, please. Oh, no, there we go.
Hey, what's up?
There it is.
Oh man.
Figured it out. It's like I'm pushing the button, but it's not working. Got it. All right. Okay. Let's see. Um, There we go. We should be good. You hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right.
My allergies are just killing me, I guess.
Yeah. It's that time of year.
When I was in Cyprus for 2 weeks and I didn't sneeze once, and then I get here, and as soon as the first day I'm here, I'm sneezing again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad here. We get a lot. It's really humid. We get a lot of pollen and everything. So it's pretty rough. But I have, let's see. So I have the screenshots you sent me over. I actually didn't
Awesome,
realize
man.
that you sent me several of them.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so we have quite a bit. Um, so,
Yeah,
some of these
just pick a
some of these
couple.
questions, some of these questions.
That was great. I didn't. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Some of
Let's go
these.
ahead and get started.
There's a couple good questions on here I think
You can go ahead and pick.
we should go over. Probably a good one would be bringing up weak body parts. We could start with that because I know that a couple years ago you started working with was it Joe? Is that who you work with? Is it Joe Bennett?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Bennett, yeah, one of the smartest mans when it comes to biomechanics in the industry. Yeah,
So let's
yeah.
let's start with
Yeah.
that. It's a good topic. So let's talk about well, I'll let you start. Talk about what body parts you wanted to bring up and what were the initial immediate changes that Joe made like right off the bat with you.
Well, the first thing is when Joe wants to work with someone or someone Joe starts working with someone, um, he won't write a training program for them unless he's trained with them in person several times. Um, yeah, if it doesn't really matter what he writes to someone if they can't execute the movements properly. That's the biggest thing. You can write anything, but if you're not doing it properly, then you're probably not going to see the best results. Um,
Right.
so after several months of training with him, uh, maybe about a year, he wrote a program for me. And basically, it just was more frequency. Training my arms. So instead of most people do a bro split, that's usually training one muscle once a week. Um, we went to training biceps twice a week. I mean, nothing super complex. So the biggest thing is making sure the person's performing each movement properly. Once that has been verified, then you can move on to adding more volume once you know they're doing everything properly. Um, yeah, and I definitely think adding more volume in the sense of adding in a second training day for a muscle is probably the best way to go about it because one, as you start to train a muscle, let's say, I think okay, yeah. So I think it's best because you have more quality training if you split it up. That volume, once you get past a certain point, a lot of people tend to get really sloppy with their
Yeah.
training. Um, So yeah. Typically just basing your training programming around whatever muscle is the weakest. If it's a different muscle, maybe sometimes just training that muscle first is a good idea in a session. If you're doing like push pull legs or something, whatever muscle you want to really see improvements with, training that muscle first is a good idea. So let's say if you're training legs and you want your hamstrings to grow, just train your hamstrings before your quads. But yeah, that's kind of the methodology Joe uses um, when he's working with me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty similar to my kind of philosophy on it too. It's like allocate, especially for an advanced person, because you can only train with so much volume because, your loads are going to get higher because you're getting stronger. You're already getting closer to the genetic ceiling. So, um, you like with a lot of people, I'll put the stronger muscle groups kind of at maintenance volume, just enough to kind of maintain them. And then we can run through prioritization phases like biceps, like you said. Um, we're running higher frequency. I've done a lot of that with myself for my back and arms, and they didn't really start coming up until I started training my lower body less. And
Yeah,
I
yeah, that's
started
another
training.
thing. Yeah, you only have a certain amount of I don't know energy or recoverability ability to grow. So yeah, you definitely those stronger body parts. My quads, I do two working sets a week. I've done that for the past like 2 years. One
Yeah,
set on hacks, one set on leg extensions, and that was it.
yeah,
So yeah, definitely agree with that as well.
yeah, yeah. And that's what I've been doing. I've been training quads and hamstrings. They literally get 1 to 2 working sets a week, and then almost all my volumes allocated to back, different muscle, different areas of the back and arms, you know. And funny enough, like my legs still grew some,
Yeah, yeah.
and you know,
I,
so
I think
uh,
a lot of people don't realize how little volume you need to maintain the size of the muscle if you're training hard enough. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. Um, so yeah, that was a good one to start with. Let's see what else
I
we
think
got
another
here.
thing, while you look for another question, is choosing the right exercises. Like I see a lot of times people choose basically the same movement like 3 times. So like let's say you're training back and you do like I don't know, they do like 3 rows. They do like a barbell row, which is essentially really wide grip. Then they do a machine row with the same grip, and they might do like you just did the same movement like 3 times, you know. So
Right.
definitely making sure they're training, doing a variety of movements to help muscle grow, and also doing movements that kind of work bias different portions of the movement. So, say for instance, you do a bicep curl that focuses more on the lengthened position of the muscle. You do another curl at the end, maybe working more of the shortened position. Um, so I definitely think things like that is important as well. Not doing movements that work the muscle in a variety of ranges. And if it's a big muscle like back, working the actual different muscles in your back and not just one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because people tend to gravitate to, and I've done this. A lot of people have done it. You tend to gravitate towards the movements that you're good at and that you like and that you're strong at, right?
Yeah.
Whereas,
Yeah.
so if you're good at a barbell squat with a certain stance, you're always going to barbell squat with that stance. You know what I mean? So, once and I think too, like advanced trainees benefit more from bracing and movements. Like that's where certain machines and things come into play where you can actually you're putting in a more stable position. Like I know for me, training things like hamstrings, if I have to do an RDL, like how much energy it takes me to unrack that weight and get into position.
Saying that.
Because when someone's using like 4, 5, 6 plates aside to do a movement, that we could better allocate that to like locking ourselves into some type of machine that's
Mhm.
going to isolate that area and not torch my erectors and my hips, right? So
Sure.
um, for sure. So some other people asked about training programming, so we kind of already covered that, and then weak body parts. There's actually a lot of training questions, but let's talk about the nutrition. Yeah, it's kind of very.
Yeah. Uh,
So let's talk about uh, some people asked about injuries too. So we can tie that into the training topic, like work training with injuries, around injuries, recovering injuries, etc. Um, we've all had them. I know last couple of years I've had a couple things pop up that forced me to train differently. Um, so last year I had a hamstring tear. Luckily, it wasn't a detachment, which was nice. So I didn't have to get nothing surgical. Obviously, like bicep tendon issue, um, and then just like the minor little shoulder stuff and elbow stuff occasionally.
yeah.
Um, so, is there anything that you have run into recently, last couple of years that you guys have maybe worked around or had to change training because of?
No, nothing too major. But every now and again, yeah, yeah. Biggest thing is so the last week or so before my last contest, I had some hamstring weirdness. It wasn't, I don't know what it was, but basically we just didn't train hamstrings that day. I was having issues just contracting the muscle. So um, I would say, yeah, if you are worried about if something doesn't feel right, I would just leave it alone in that training session. Uh, if or if you can train a muscle, just let's say, for instance, you've been having issues with certain exercises. Some people just do exercises because they think that's going to build the most muscle. But if you constantly get injured from the exercise, then maybe that's not the exercise for you. Like, for example, barbell press. You can do there's a lot of different things you can do besides barbell press if that may feel better for a person. Other than that, I would say, hmm, injury wise, yeah, I've had a lot of shoulder stuff over the years, and basically just finding When my shoulder stuff does pop up every now and again, just finding exercises that feel good and just staying away from ones that don't is the biggest thing. I've had times where doing anything like converging was causing me a lot of issues, so I switched to a Smith machine barbell press, and that was good for that injury. I've had times where that exercise didn't feel right, so I would switch to a machine instead, or so just finding what works best in that situation is typically a good idea for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a couple movements that I just don't do them anymore at all. Just
Mhm.
because I don't. You can't get married to certain movements, like especially as you get more advanced. You definitely have to get away from that.
Yeah,
Yeah, with the shoulder issue, with the bicep, my shoulder issue is more that bicep tendon in the front of the shoulder. So it's not necessarily like rotator cuff labrum type stuff, but um, all my pressing has changed to I basically have to press with a certain width that allows me to more elbow flexion when I come down, which again, that hits your tricep more, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because more elbow flexion. So I've had to be more cognizant of like keeping my chest and diaphragm up and getting my pecs stretched in the movements and contracting. And my chest has probably improved because of that, even though technically on paper I'm using a grip that's not really advantageous for chest, but it's just
Mhm.
mentally I've had to focus on what I was doing a little bit more, and then get away from the movements that probably weren't doing anything and just hurting me most of the time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I
uh,
get that question all the time. This exercise hurts. Should I do it? And I'm like, no. You don't
right,
know. Just don't do it. Yeah.
right. Yeah, 100%. Okay, sweet. So there's another good training question I think we can talk about in here too. So we're talking about more advanced training, but what about someone that's maybe newer or within their first couple years of training? Because I definitely think there's some differences. Well, let's say this. So you go on Instagram, right? You have guys like Joe, you have guys that are more advanced and they put out information. And I think that there's certainly like a newer population that maybe is missing a lot of foundational items first before because obviously like execution of exercise is probably going to be, I would say, most important thing for anybody.
For
You
sure.
know, um, it's just getting that basic part down. But then there's probably nuanced stuff that's less important for a newer population. Like for example, newer populations, they can train in all kinds of volume ranges and they're going to get an effect,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, and also they're a lot less likely to train over that maximum recoverable volume because they're not generating as much intensity, they're not as strong,
Yeah.
etc. Whereas that advanced person, like we have a window like this big that we can train in that's pretty effective. Like anything under that's not effective, anything over that's too much, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, so for newer people, like that's a takeaways. And I always tell people train just a little bit over what your minimum effective volume is because you're always going to have to go up as you get, as you advance. I mean, all of us have probably gone through the phase where when we first started, we trained forever,
Yeah.
trained for 2.5 hours or whatever, and 6 days, 7 days a week, 2 times a day, whatever it was. And we eventually had to come to the realization that as we got stronger, that we couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, I mean,
I
yeah.
think yeah,
So,
I think programming I mean if they're like if, let's say for instance like a 16, teenager kid, not a whole lot of muscle at all. Yeah, I definitely would tell them this usually like I mean everyone knows this you start off with, typically full body, upper lower, push pull legs. I would say honestly any one of those three from I wouldn't be too picky for a kid to choose any one of those. To be honest, maybe I know, yeah, any one of those would be fine, I think. But definitely, I wouldn't have them doing anything like super specialized like a bro split, or like, maybe training, each body part separately in the beginning. Um, I definitely think the one thing I've realized from training just a few people, I haven't even trained nearly as many people as like Joe and whatnot, but um, I like to have I like to have the training be more frequent, just because you tend to see a if they're training a muscle for too long, I'm just worried that they're gonna lose their form, their execution, and that would just make them more injury prone. So I'd rather them just train a couple muscles throughout that session where they're fresh, and they don't have to worry about anything like that. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd rather them like just have just build on good habits. I mean, they do this with all types of things, even in studying. You study, they have you take more frequent breaks and things like that. So I think it kind of crosses over the training as well. Um, yeah. So I like to do it kind of like that. One thing I also noticed, like you said, is typically with newer people, they don't get anywhere near failure. So I would say every single person have a law book and just try to beat that law book, and eventually they'll get closer to to failure just by increasing the weight each week. Um,
Right.
I was just in Washington and I had this 16-year-old kid. Um, he did twice as many reps as he thought he could do, and I say that how I base that is he was gonna rack the weight at like 10 reps, and I was like no, and he just kept going, and he did 10 more reps than he thought he could. And I see that a lot where the amount of volume, the amount of reps people can do is way more than they think they can. Like way more. Not even it's not even close. That's why sometimes I worry about giving people like RPEs and RIRs,
Right.
especially new guys. Like new guys, I'm like, ugh, you don't know what training to failure is like, so I don't think you're quite ready for anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and there's some good points there. I mean, like if for the people that are kind of into research, they show us that. I mean, the research basically has proved at this point that you have to train hard enough within the set, like proximity to failure, and you have to do enough. And that's kind of what it showed us, like enough volume and enough proximity to failure. But the frequency thing is a really good point because the research on that's kind of mixed. But really, like the more advanced you get, yeah, if you're doing 10 sets of chest over a week, you're probably going to have a lot better performance if you split it 5 and 5. Like by the time you get to set 7 on day one, you're done. Like your
Yeah.
performance, I mean, I know personally, man, if I'm training a muscle group and I get much like 5, 6, 7 sets, like a bigger muscle group, much past that, and that what I can handle poundage wise and execution wise is just going to be
Yeah.
just going to drop way off. So like that, the frequency thing is definitely important. Maybe not so much for a newer trainee, a little bit, but like I said, those people, every volume, like any amount of volume is going to pretty much create an adaptation at that point because you haven't done anything. So I like your suggestion of more so like just focusing on execution and getting stronger,
Mhm.
and you're going to grow at that point for sure. Um, so I have another one we can go into, and I think this would be helpful for anyone because this is kind of how we met initially was just talking about like general tips to be successful as a coach, and just some things that we can offer to people that have been helpful to us because I think there's a lot of different areas to consider, like how do you handle your clients and education, and what do you put online, like posting, whatever. So um, and our backgrounds we're totally different because
Yeah.
the biggest difference is really like I've been around, like by the time we met, I'd already been coaching for a while, probably, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8 years. And you also were starting to coach, but then you also had all your success, which obviously springboarded potential clients
Yeah, yeah,
coming in.
yeah. That was so you have been doing it 6 or 7 years, and that was 2018 when I started working with you.
Right. Yeah, because I start my first paying client was 2009 was
Okay.
when, yeah, and I was young. I mean, we didn't really have, at the time there was not like, there was no such thing as classes or uh, mentorships. I mean, you had like personal training certifications, about the most advanced thing that you could find anywhere, unless you were going to school for something, which you know how much carryover that has into coaching. It's like
Yeah.
not a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd probably say like my general tips would be, first off, figure out who do you want to who do you want to work with. So now there's like a lot of business coaching and different stuff, and they're going to tell you to use these scripts to talk to people, or marketing tactics and stuff. But I think the problem is that once you do them, you're getting a whole bunch of shitty clients that you don't want.
Yeah.
um, like I people ask me like, well, what you put out a certain amount like advanced information or functional health or whatever it is. I'm like, yeah, because those are the clients that I want to attract. I'm not, if you think about, if you're all you're putting out, and I'm not picking on anyone specifically, but if all you're putting out is like cheesy TikTok style reels where that's all you're doing, who do you think is going to want to work with you? The people that are watching that, and are those really the types of people that you want? You know,
Yeah.
um, so you have to kind of present the kind of person to the kind of person that you want to bring in. So I've always kind of, for me, like I've always just been like, all right, I see these other people doing certain things on social media, but I don't want to feel like I need to do those, because that's not
Mhm.
who I'm trying to attract. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, definitely, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, cater to the audience you want. That's definitely very, very important. Uh, yeah, definitely one. Yeah, that's like number one. Know your market. Know who you want to work with. I think some easy ways is what helped me the most is actually just learning, uh, like what I needed to know, like education. I had a whole bunch of certs, but I think on top of that, learning how to apply the information that I had learned was super important. And then also the way I started to get clients was just putting out free information. Yeah, that was literally the best way. Anytime I did a Q&A answering questions, I would get a couple what's the word I'm looking for? A couple people inquiring about my services. Anytime I would put out a video talking about my training or anything like that, I would get a few more. The only thing is I would just have to, when I did the Q&As and I did the free information with the videos, I would just have to put like a call to action. So hey, these are my services. I'm offering these. If you're interested, just shoot me a message or apply online or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always try to encourage people to put out a variety of information. Like some stuff can be fun. It doesn't always have to be educational. It could
Yeah.
be like, it could just be like on your end, something posing wise you're interested in, but you also help with posing, so that's relevant,
Mhm.
right? But um, fun stuff's fine. Like I'll put shit that's not really helpful or valuable, but for the most part, I try to add some kind of value to what I'm posting. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying before, is a lot of those things don't really provide that much value, you know?
They really,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, even when you talk about, how to do this or do that, it's a lot of context behind it, that people aren't
right,
aware of or how to use it.
right. And that's where, and really all that does is kind of confuses the consumer, and they're getting all this information from different places and they don't really know what to do with it, or what's right or what's wrong. And then also, one thing that kind of frustrates me, and again, I kind of stay in my own lane. People do whatever they want, but um, one thing that does frustrate me a lot is this, like making it seem like people, you need this, right? Like they're
Oh,
just like, you know what I mean? Like you need this, right?
yeah, yeah.
it's like this market creating FOMO, right? Fear of missing out on something or they are over complicating something to an extent where people are like, oh my God, I gotta have that. Like I gotta do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Right. And so stuff like that from where I've come from, it just bothers me a little bit because it confuses the consumer and then they come to me or they come to you and they have all of these really bad habits that are formed and all of these like skewed thought processes and we got to try to teach them something
yeah.
different.
I
And
had
it's
this one
difficult.
guy. Recently, I do consult calls too. So he called me and he's like, "Tell me what you're gonna be able to do with my body." And I'm like, "Bro, I haven't worked with you. I don't know anything about your body. I'm not gonna promise that you can get a pro card or anything crazy like that. I literally don't know what you're doing or anything like that." But I'm pretty sure. Well, he was telling me he's talked to a couple other coaches. He's like, well, this guy said this and this and this. And I'm like, dude, anyone telling you like right off the bat what they can do is probably run
Right.
from you, dude. That's a really fucking bad, uh,
Yeah.
bad thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a red flag. Like anyone like that, or just talking in absolutes in general. It's like
yeah,
this equals this. It's like, well, and that's your point about context. That's why when if you are posting information, always just make people aware, like, hey, there's context to this, or put multiple scenarios, whatever it might be. What works for me might not work for them, so on and so forth. So yeah, so like the education piece is super important.
I
And
think
also, I
it's
think,
important too because I mean, for me, I'm able to get like I can always probably get clients, but the thing is would I be able to keep them if I wasn't educated? No. And then that would
right,
spinball to like I would never get referrals, and it would just be like a constant like sprint trying to maintain like new clients all the time. And that's yeah. So definitely, it's
yeah,
just yeah. I definitely think that's how I'm able to keep clients. That's how like now like with the coaching team I have to send more people like way more people to my other coaches because I can't handle all of them, you know. And
right,
even with choosing them, I'll make sure that they're educated and they know what they're doing because again, um, reputation matters. Yeah, if you have people on your team or even if yourself, you're turning out like not good work or you're injuring people, then that business isn't sustainable, you know?
right. That's and that's where the business coaching kind of flaws because like, hey, we can funnel you in 100 clients, but you don't know how to service them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, so hey, cool, you're getting 5 new client inquiries a week, but your turnover rate is also 5 per week. So
yeah.
it's and I tell people because the mentorship like has evolved a lot since we worked together, but I always tell people one of the things is the absolute best way to build your business and get clients is just service the ones that you have the
Hmm.
best you can because referrals are really what's going to drive sustainability at the end of the day. You're not just like chasing people on social media and or whatever people do, right? So um, that's really what's going to make the difference. But I think one last thing too is just with the education piece is if you are paying somebody to help you or you're taking a class or you're doing whatever it might be, try to work with somebody that's also going to help you with application and not just give you the
Yeah,
information.
yeah,
Um, so the information's there. Like if you really, really wanted to, you can find things, but application's really the hard, is the difficult part to teach and it takes time to learn. So, just make sure that you're getting that help. If you're paying for help. So let's let's maybe tackle 1 to 2 more of these. Let's see what else we got here.
we had someone ask about rest and recovery in the feed too.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. That's a good one. We can talk about that. Then there's one other one on here that I think we can hit. But
Okay. Okay.
so recovery wise, what kind of tips do you have for people? I have a pretty good set routine that I do myself, but talk about what you kind of do.
Um, I kind of talk about it from like a maybe a training aspect. So, my training is based around what I can recover from, and that's how I treat my clients as well. So, um, everyone has a different amount of volume and intensity they can handle in a session. And just figuring out what that is, I think, is important for the way I train. So, people always ask, why do you just do, two working sets on a lot of your exercises? I'm like, well, that's what I can handle for the most part. Or I remember I used to be able to do, so another interesting, I used to be able to do two a days back in 2017, fairly consistently. Um, but now I tried it maybe a year ago, and I was beat down within like 3 weeks. I was like, I couldn't barely get out of bed. And even then, my volume was very, very low. 1 to 3 working sets on every exercise I was doing. It just was, yeah. I just intensity is always pretty high with me, to be honest. So maybe I could have lowered my intensity a bit, and that would have made the training more effective. But definitely, that's how I like this. For me personally, I like to keep the intensity on the higher end, and then mess around with volume to kind of make sure I'm recovering properly. So
Right.
yeah, I definitely think just making sure you're training, making sure you're recovering, and then just changing your training based on that, how you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And you make some really good points there. Is like you should look at your training volume or workload based on what else is going on in your life. Like for example, if you have somebody that's super low stress and they financially stable, they don't have to do much. Like maybe they have that nice cush life.
Yeah.
Chances are they're probably going to be able to handle more volume than the CEO of a company
Or
that's
construction
mentally
worker.
taxed. Right.
Yeah.
It's so you can't you certainly can't look at because those are things that we have less control over, right? Like certain things like people like especially as coaches, we can move our schedules around a little bit, but for the most part, probably just working most of the day, a
Yeah.
lot of the time. So and that certain people that are higher up in companies have demanding jobs, family stuff, like it's you have to factor that in, but you know, you can't we can't just train everyone like, hey, this we need this many sets for these muscle groups. We have to take into account environmental stress
Yeah.
and work with that. So now obviously there are things we can do to improve environment, right? So things that pretty popular topics like sleep routine, sleep hygiene, right? I know for me, my sleep routine's pretty set. Like but it also starts during the day. I like to get light in the morning. I try to get some kind of light. If there's, I work one of the rooms of my house where there's a lot of windows. So like if I'm not outside, like I get some sunlight coming in. That feels good, right? That'll help start that circadian pattern for the day, get my dopamine levels up, kind of get me going. Um, and then late in the day, just making sure that I'm doing the opposite, right? So I'll wear blue light blockers, but I also pretty much an hour before bed, I don't really have any lights on. I light some candles, throw my blue light blockers on. I tell you, if you do that and you chill 30 minutes before bed, you're going to be so tired.
Yeah.
Just, melatonin production is going to go up, GABA levels will go up, you'll be relaxed. You can't, you can't just jump in bed and expect to fall asleep.
Yeah. I do a little differently. So, I mean, everything you said in the morning is basically the same. The only difference is at night. I also have my normal glasses that I wear have amount of blue light blocking. I have blue light blocking lenses for my prescriptions as well. But
Right.
the lights in my house, I bought these special LED lights, and I have it set on a schedule. Like I think at 9 o'clock at night, they turn like red.
Red.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these are red. So
Yep.
I thought that was really cool. That's what
Yep.
I was trying to do before I got on the call. For some reason, they were still red, so I had to like fix that before I answered the phone. Yeah, answer
Yeah.
it live. So that was the one thing I do. I also don't have a TV in my room. Yeah, so things like that too help me quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do red bulbs. You can do like candles work, like salt lamps, like the Himalayan salt lamps that are paint colored. Those will hit off the red hue. All that stuff's nice. You just have the fancy version where
Yeah,
it's
those
like
are
automatically
expensive.
built in.
I got it from
Yeah.
Target. If anyone's wondering, yeah. But yeah, I can make them basically. I can make them any color in the rainbow, and also they have natural light colors that vary too, from like sunset to bright daylight. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So stuff like that's all important. I mean, I think anything else is kind of bonus. Like, I mean, there's obviously other recovery modalities people like to do. I mean, I basically tell people whatever relieves stress for you is going to help. With the caveat there is that if training more or like getting drunk or something like that is your stress
Not
relief,
good.
obviously, right. Like obviously that's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's defeating the purpose. But anything like if you're more into doing something like meditation, stuff like that, that's fine. A lot of people might struggle with that. They might not be able to sit down and do it and focus and do it.
I like
Um,
sometimes to
just
tell people
depends.
to take a walk too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Any, anything that's not stimulating is going to be helpful. For some people that's going to be taking a walk. Like if you have more of an income, you can do like when we're going to move in the summer. I want to get an infrared sauna in my house.
Mm.
So stuff like that, like that's more of a luxury, but those things will help. Um, but obviously aren't required. Like you could literally just your light exposure is going to be huge, and just being calm at night and going to sleep. It's not overly complicated most of the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused. They see like pros doing all this cold therapy or red light therapy, sauna stuff, and like you said, it's nice. It's like a bonus. But yeah, you can still grow just fine without a lot of this. And most people, and at the level, like a lot of times, these some of the guys they're at a very very high level, so they may need stuff like that a little bit more than your average.
I'm reading some of these questions. Uh-oh. Hope we didn't lose him. Uh-oh. Let's see. Oh, got you. You're good. You hear me? I can see you. I don't know if you can hear me though. Let's see. Uh-oh. This might be the end. Let's see if we can go back here. All right. All right. We're gonna resend his invite here. Try to get him back in. Hold tight. Let's see if it works. Let's look in here. Yes, I will put this up for viewing later. I'll post it on my page, so you should be able to see it, no problem. There we go. Huh. Impersonation. I don't know if I can do a Terrence impersonation. I don't look good enough to do it. I don't know if it's gonna bring him back in, guys. I'm hoping. Accept. Go live.
Hey,
There we go. There he
it's
is.
weird. Like Instagram made me make a new password right then and there.
Oh shit.
It just popped up. You need a new password. I was
All right.
like-
That's funny.
and then I had to sign back in and everything. Yeah.
No, you're good. Yeah, we should be good.
Okay.
I figured let's hit one more. Let's do a fun one though. Let's do one that's like not
Okay.
fitness related. We got one in here. This one's how would you recommend getting over a girl?
Oh God. They always I'm like a therapist. I'm like, oh yeah,
I was like,
my
I was like, we'll answer this one for fun.
oh,
Um, shit. So full disclosure, I've been married for this will be 7 years this year.
wow.
So I haven't had to get over anyone for a while. You know, we've been together. It'll be 10 years at the end of this year. So I haven't had to deal with that in a while.
Man,
But
yeah, you've been off the market for a minute.
yeah, for a little bit. But you know, past parts of my life, I certainly had to get over it. But I think one thing too is like there's a lot of things, especially early in relationships, that you probably were interested in that kind of get pushed to the side when
Mhm.
you start to spend all your time with somebody. And so probably the easiest thing is kind of just like revisiting a lot of those interests that maybe you stopped doing
So fun.
because you were seeing the girl, which I think I've been in a relationship for a long time. So like the things that I liked to do before, I still do now, but there's definitely a phase early on where I'm like, I don't give a shit about anything because I got this girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you have that phase for a while and you probably kind of neglect a lot of your hobbies and stuff that you're interested in for a while.
Yeah.
Um, so I would just say, yeah, like just revisit a lot of that stuff that made you happy prior and go for it. I mean, you can always just find another girl.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, maybe not the best advice, and
I
maybe
mean,
this
that
is why I'm
always
not a
helps, right?
therapist. Yeah, just go out and have some fun, bro. Like go out and yeah, that's would be my advice. Maybe not the best advice, but yeah. No, I like the hobby thing you said. Yeah, definitely getting back in the hobbies you like. But yeah, besides that, yeah, go out and go to club, have a good time, do something, yo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Um,
have to, people don't, it being idle is not a good thing when you've got
yeah.
something heavy going on. You definitely want to stay occupied. I know some people will say, well, that's just kind of a cop out to distract yourself, but that's really what it is. It's like,
I think that's okay.
you,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And just slowly, work your way to dealing with it. But yeah, you don't when you're like super sad, you don't need to like confront it immediately. You know.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It'll take some time, but I thought that one was pretty funny. Um,
Oh my God.
I don't know why. I have no idea why somebody asked that, but it,
I always asking me stuff that I'm not qualified to answer. I'm like, hmm.
that's funny. Um, we'll hit one more quick one, easy one here. Okay, here, this would be a good one. How do you manage your diet while traveling?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, okay. I think people
Yeah,
overcomplicate it. Like it's really not super complicated. So say for instance, I gotta go to Georgia this weekend. I will still just pack all my meals. Actually, for Georgia, actually for that trip, I'm just gonna bring all my food. I'll have my meals in my backpack with me for my travel there throughout the day. You know, flying there, and then I like to um, I'll bring my scale with me as well. I have like a very thin scale, about that, maybe that big, like that thick, that I'll throw in my bag, and I will most likely bring microwavable rice, and then the chicken I usually eat, I'll throw that in the freezer, and then when I leave, throw that in the freezer the night before, and then I'll just throw that in some luggage, and then when I get to Georgia, it'll be, ready just in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, basically everyone meal preps already. It's just you meal prep normally for that day, and then the bulk stuff you typically people have in the fridge, you just put that in your check bag, and you're good to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Some trips though, I will just bring my food for the day, and then I would just go shopping right when I get to the new place. And yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I would do. If it's a longer trip, obviously you're not going to bring everything. You just bring that maybe like first day's worth, and then get the rest when you get there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then if it's short, just bring all of it, and you're good to go. And you can always, and now, I mean, depending on budget and what your goals are, I mean, obviously there's a whole bunch of meal prep services now, like that's always an option. Like some are better than others, obviously, in terms of like actually giving you proper portions and stuff that they're
Yeah.
saying they're giving you. Um, and and of course, even then, like I've gone to shows and stuff, like, or, competed for myself, and like grocery delivery services. I
Oh
know I
yeah,
had,
what I do. Yeah.
I,
If it's
you know,
as
I
what I
would,
did in Ohio, yeah, I did that. I did exactly that. Like on my flight there, I just scheduled my food to get there by the time I pulled up to my room. So when I got to my Airbnb, my food was already sitting outside ready for me just to put it away.
yeah.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, like, Instacart or different services like that you want to roll with, like that's probably the way to go if you want to prep it yourself, if you're not doing a meal prep service. And then if you, depending on, it's like a city especially, and you don't want to dick around with like going through traffic and trying to get to the grocery store, if
Yeah.
you're in prep and it's right before a show, especially, because like keeping your stress down is obviously key. Last thing you want to do is like have to sit in traffic and get pissed off and try to make it to the grocery store.
Yeah. And I don't want to
So
be walking around looking for stuff sometimes. And sometimes, yeah,
right.
yeah. So I just rather just have it shipped to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, so all that's pretty easy now with all the services that we have, I would say. But cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, of course.
I will reshare this. I'll put it up on my page so you can always reshare if you want.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll definitely do that. Yeah, some people are still at work or sleeping or had to do something, you know.
yeah, and I'll probably put this up. I'll probably just put this up on my YouTube also. I should be able to. And thanks for the questions. I know we weren't able to get them all. I saw a bunch of them popping up. Someone asked me to do my best Terrence impression, and I don't think I can pull it off.
I don't think I have like a unique voice to do something like that, you know. Yeah.
That's funny, but cool, man. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you, everybody, for coming on, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
All right. Peace.
Take it easy, brother.